Arch Brown, an amateur photographer turned incidental filmmaker, first came to broad public attention through his films. During gay liberation's first decade, Brown's homoerotic films achieved an international following, garnering amazing reviews. In this episode, we're going to celebrate Arch Brown, a filmmaker who would become a master craftsman and philanthropist after leaving the corporate world behind. This is Demystifying Gay Porn. My name is Ike Grande, and if you watch gay porn, I've definitely helped you get off. Before we continue, please don't forget to help my channel and this audiovisual podcast by subscribing, clicking the like button, and selecting the bell icon so you can be notified every time I publish a new video. Also, leave a comment and let me know what you think. Arch Brown was born Arnold Kruger in the middle of the Depression in Chicago, Illinois. Brown describes his upbringing as middle class and Western, with his parents raising him in a neighborhood of small bungalows with alleys and garages. Brown grew up a shy child, a good student with good grades. Brown fumbled through finding his sexuality at an early age, experimenting with a male classmate, and later with girls, ultimately realizing he preferred the company of men. By the time he was 15, Brown, who now stood 6'3" and confident, knew all the cruising locations in town, taking a lover during high school and one during college as well. While in college, Brown wanted to pursue a career in television or theater, having always been a visual person. He attended Northwestern University and studied under Alvina Krauss. Brown graduated college and returned home, landing a job that paid well enough for him to afford a flight to New York. He rented a small apartment and got a job at an off-Broadway theater called The Circle in the Square as a designer and technical assistant. It was around this time that Brown would meet Bruce Allen Brown. Arch Brown met Bruce in 1965 at a bathhouse near Coney Island. It was rocky at first, with Brown saying he kept trying to get Bruce's attention, but to no avail. When they finally spoke, they hit it off. And after their first date, Brown allegedly told his roommate he had met the man he was going to spend the rest of his life with. Arch and Bruce had a wonderfully easy lifestyle and partnership that is perfectly documented through good times and hard times in the book Longtime Companions. During the mid-1960s, Brown was shuffling through a series of jobs for different companies. In the spring of 1967, Brown was a junior executive of a large corporation far removed from the communicative arts. Brown also, for the first time, had a decent salary. Little did he know that a year and a half later, he would be thrust into the world of gay erotic cinema. Brown lost his job when he and his co-workers stood by an employee who was fired by upper management for thumbing through a Playboy magazine at the office for an assignment. Brown and his co-workers argued that this was not grounds for termination, but upper management begged to differ. Unemployed and money dwindling in his bank account, Brown began to think of his next move. During this time, Brown would also come down with hepatitis. He no longer had health insurance and was unable to afford a hospital stay his doctor had recommended. Brown was nursed by Bruce at home. While ailing, all that kept popping into his head was a camera. Once he was feeling better, and after browsing through a camera store, Brown decided to buy a small Bolex camera. Brown would go out and shoot footage in New York, surprisingly, finding a lot of curious and interested models. His first sexual shoot came by way of a beautiful blonde man Brown happened upon, who was intrigued by some public candid shots and went back to Brown's place for more. While there, the shoot turned into an impromptu solo session. The man came back to see the finished product and enjoyed it, but left without asking for a copy. In fact, in his book, A Pornographer, Brown talks of innocent outings that would turn into men and women wanting to pose nude for him at his apartment. He would show the footage to Bruce, who was always excited to see and hear about his exploits, as well as friends in private who encouraged him to become an erotic filmmaker.
Once there were 3 young men, like Ken Darrell. I met him first in the village and then met his friend, Jason McBride. The hustle of the streets was hard, like for Just in Time. But I took them away from all that. They called me Harley, and I called them Harley's Angels.
Many of Brown's early gay film sex loops were shown in private movie clubs like Cinema 7 in New York City. You were charged $3 to watch porn films. In January 1970, the cinema was raided. The owner, employees, and several customers were arrested, and many of Brown's films were confiscated. The projectionist managed to save some of his loops, and from that, one of his films, 5 Hard Pieces, was made. As a pornographer, Brown always worked for hire, writing, directing, and filming for a flat fee, rather than owning and starting a studio or producing and distributing his own films. As his films were released and successful, more opportunities came in from theater owners, producers, and distributors. Because of the success of his films, Brown was in a position of making demands, like having a producer pay him a flat fee for all of the production costs up front. Many of his earlier films focus on love and tenderness. However, viewers will find that there is something for every kink in Brown's filmography. This can be attributed to Brown understanding and experimenting with the thought that the audience walks in with a predetermined idea of what they need to get off. His shooting style also consisted of filming as much of a particular scene as he felt was needed before having the models move around or take a break. Brown felt it was important to catch as much of the uninterrupted sexual action as possible, so long as the attraction was there. He would screen and interview his actors and worked best with actors he developed a rapport with, as he felt they were true sexual performers. He loved the performers. They were less interested in their cocks or tits and more interested in performance. His films were filled with ordinary people in ordinary situations that audiences could relate to.
Thanks a lot for helping.
That's all right. This is a nice place. It'll be great when you finish it. And it's a hot building.
You know somebody?
I have a friend downstairs.
Brown enjoyed critical acclaim during his time as a filmmaker. From the advocates' praise of his films as high-quality and beautifully crafted intelligent pieces of erotica that create new standards, to Warhol's Interview magazine admiring his theories on love and sex and moving porn into the middle-class mainstream of society. As theaters began to close and video was on its way in, Brown's career in the adult entertainment industry began to fade. At the suggestion of a friend who recognized the wit in his films, Brown turned to playwriting. His first play, Newsboy, was produced later that year by the Glinds, a nonprofit organization in New York, went on to a full off-Broadway mounting at the Players Theater, and had 9 productions across the country over the next 15 years. Brown, at the age of 43, had a new career and was a playwright. As I mentioned earlier, Brown's relationship with Bruce is well documented by Brown and is a great love story with its ups and downs. During the 1980s, Bruce's work had taken a mental toll on his health, and Brown believed that the best way to remedy this was to find a new adventure. And they did. Several. From owning a bed and breakfast in the U.S. Virgin Islands to moving to Arizona, the Browns found themselves in many new experiences. One night in Arizona, Bruce collapsed in the kitchen and suffered a brain hemorrhage, stroke, and a concussion from the fall. This resulted in Bruce having a partial frontal lobe removal that would leave him impaired and in recovery for 2 years. After 2 years of an emotionally painful recovery, Bruce gained back some of his memory, as well as his ability to walk and take care of himself. In 1993, Bruce had another brain hemorrhage and died before paramedics could save him. Brown, who had always thought he and Bruce would grow old together, would pick himself up from his own bout of depression and move forward. He continued to write and would learn to love again. He set up the Arch and Bruce Brown Foundation, which gives grants to gay-positive arts projects based on history. Arch Brown, Arnold Kruger, died on September 3, 2012, in Palm Springs at the age of 76. While packing and archiving his work, an unpublished manuscript was discovered that would eventually become his memoir, A Pornographer. Brown's life, and the way of life that had been drilled into his head since he was a child, the American dream, was changed when he entered the world of erotic filmmaking. Brown made the jump from a corporate world into an erotic visual landscape that better suited him. He was fortunate to live in a world where he can buy a Bolex camera, point and shoot, and people were practically begging him to be in his shot. A very different world than we live in today. Through his camera, Brown was not only helping people realize their fantasies, he was realizing and satisfying his own.
You've been watching Demystifying Gay Porn. I'm your host, Ike Grande. Demystifying Gay Porn is available on every podcast directory, as well as YouTube. Demystifying Gay Porn is on X, Instagram, Facebook, Telegram.
And if you like what you're watching or listening to and want to be a part of the creative process, head over to patreon.com/demystifyinggayporn, where you can help support this audiovisual podcast and YouTube channel, and I can continue making content like you've just enjoyed. Once again, this is Demystifying Gay Porn. My name is Ike Grande, and if you watch gay porn, I've definitely helped you get off. Cheers.